more, Katie will be eating more.
And I'll be eating less, I hope.
Weekly Lawrence City Commission meeting, and this evening we have no official recognitions. However, I have information that there's a few Lampiers in the audience who may want to make a comment. Is there a Madeline Lampier here? You want to raise your hand? Is there a Dashiell Lampier? And is there a Henry Lampier? I understand you folks traveled from a city near here to see how big government really works well. And do one of you want to go to the microphone and say where you live? I'd have to. There we go.
New York.
And is there anything that you wanted to say tonight, special? Oh, here we go. Okay, well, welcome from New York, and those happen to be my grandchildren, so that's why they get special recognition, of course.
But they have to hold the sign up though, because that wasn't enough.
Oh,
All
there
right,
it is.
let everybody see.
So what?
Yep, that's too cute.
We'll be saving that sign. That's one of a kind. There'll never be another one like that. Okay, good. Appreciate the letting me share that with you. So, okay, first on the agenda is the consent agenda. All matters listed below on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on those items. If a discussion is desired, this item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Okay, I'm going to remove item number 9 for a separate discussion and separate vote. Is there any other items the City Commission would like to remove from the consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Any other items the public would like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing no other items being removed and adding to the consent agenda, claims in the amount for paying 175 vendors of $2,948,862.84. I'd entertain a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda, less number 9. Moved Amix, second Dever. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Item number 9 is let me get down here to it. Initiate text amendments to various sections of the city code related to land use development processes. And does the staff want to make a short presentation on this, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Scott McCullough with the Planning Office. The agenda item on your consent agenda today would begin the process to review certain sections of the code in an attempt to look at development processes that have been brought to staff's attention either through community dialogue or Planning Commission input or our own staff review of the code in an attempt to make it as efficient as possible. A couple of them are likely to be viewed as bold concepts to take up. They will all go through the Planning Commission and back to you for your final consideration. Tonight's action simply initiates the process to look at revising the code. I'm happy to go through any one of the, I think, 7 items that staff has identified and brought to you tonight for your consideration to initiate.
We had a request from the League of Women Voters to pull this from the consent agenda, so we'll let, I believe Alan Black's here to visit about those items.
Thank you. I am Alan Black, and I am chair of the Land Use Committee of the League of Women Voters, and we appreciate your action to defer this for further consideration. There are several items that disturb us, but there are 2 in particular. One of these is deals with the requirement for a retail market study for a proposed commercial use of 50,000 square feet or more, and that is what is required now. And the proposed change is to eliminate that requirement. And the argument is that the planning staff makes an overall market study every 2 years. Okay, and that would be sufficient for them to make a recommendation on any individual proposal. And we don't feel that that is adequate. The second item that disturbed us is to remove the requirement that a rezoning has to conform to the comprehensive plan, now currently known as Horizon 2020. So that would allow rezoning if the staff favored it, recommended it, that did not conform to the comprehensive plan. And that plan, I should mention as well, originally was rather vague and general. It is supplemented by area plans, which are much more specific and have specific land uses designated for particular areas. So we would like these two matters to be considered more. And our feeling, I think, is that they create a bias in favor of developers and make the process of approving a development much easier and quicker. And we feel that there should be more study and consideration about the overall impact on the whole city of Lawrence and other people besides developers. That's enough for me to say. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Mr. Black, I had a question for you. You're saying that these need more study, but what we're talking about doing here this evening is to send them off to Planning Commission and such in order to study them. And so I'm wondering whether, are you just trying to get the opposition to these items in early, or are you wishing for us to not study these?
Well, I did not know it was going to go, we didn't know it was going to go to the Planning Commission. We just assumed that if you voted consent tonight, it would be approved.
Oh, no, yeah.
No, we would be in favor of having it sent back to the Planning Commission.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, just a couple of things, I guess. As you'll note in the report, we're not seeking to remove these important values in the code and of the comprehensive plan. We're seeking to review them to see if we can uphold the values of these in a different way. You'll find that in about every section that we outline here for you, whether that's lighting or parking lot screening or even the retail market study itself. We think those are all important concepts. On the issue of process, yes, this is, we're bringing this to the City Commission for initiation, give us the authority to then go through the legal statutory process for amending the development code and perhaps other city code sections, and that would go through its process and then ultimately come back to the City Commission for final review. Planning Commission would be a recommending body in this case.
Is that a sufficient answer?
Yeah. Yes.
Any other comments from others? City Commission discussion? Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved Carter, second Trumbull, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carries 5-0. Next is the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. Just a few items in this week's report to highlight. As you know, we own the Lawrence Arts Center building. The Lawrence Arts Center is a wonderful tenant and provides great services in that building for years and decades to come. We also pay the utility bills for that facility. Hence, Eileen Horn's work in this area, our sustainability coordinator, coordinated a energy audit of that facility. You see her report there, and good, impressive payback. We went ahead and did the work. It's going to save us money on utility bills, hopefully save a little bit of staff time there at the Arts Center as well. You have the June building permit report. Relatively good news, not as robust as in years past, but continued investment in the community, so we're glad to see that. Finally, you have a memorandum and a map, goes under the title Miscellaneous Pump Station Improvements, but some very important modernization improvements to our sanitary sewer utility. And we appreciate a lot of the staff work and good contractor work to get that project completed. So I'd be happy to respond to any questions or comments you might have.
Yeah, Dave, just a couple things on the monthly permit report.
Yes, sir.
The 2012, that's through August, we're at 377,000 year-to-date on permits.
Yes, sir.
And so that's about 20,000 higher than 2008, which was our next highest year.
Yes.
And that's just through August. But I'm looking at the actual total valuations, and I'm just curious what the, is it because of the different types of projects that impact how much the percentage of the fees are?
Could be, and what I need to do, Commissioner Carter, is let me drill in that a little bit further. That may be total valuation, including valuation for projects that don't pay building permits. Don't know that for a fact, but let me spend a minute. Look, it is, Scott? We'll look at it and see. I mean, that may be, that's a good point, Commissioner. That may be the discrepancy there. If you take a look at the total projects there at the very bottom of the memo, it's got at least one LMH doesn't pay a building permit because it's a city-owned asset. In some other cases, there may have been some other building permits that are there, but let's drill into that and find out
Yeah,
why
sorry,
that
I meant
is.
to ask you in advance so you could do that,
No,
but.
sure, we'll
And then
look
I
at
just
it.
noticed, so multifamily permits, number of units through August built, actual units is 306. And is that correct that 2008, 9, 10, and 11 combined for, what is that, 240 units total? It seems like we've been building a lot more apartments than that.
We'll double check those numbers and get a report back to you, but
Okay.
we had a big one this year with Hunter's Ridge.
Westfield or?
Well,
Okay. Anyway, that just seemed like we've been building apartments at a faster pace than that for the last 4 years, and then this year it's showing it's more than the last 4 years combined by quite a bit, so
Those are good questions. I think we'll dive into that and see.
that's it. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks.
Good. First three items have to do with the proposed recreation center at 6th and K10. And we're going to defer these tonight because we're not ready to consider them. We've got more information that we need. So I'll let staff say anything they want to do about this up front. The first one is to consider a comprehensive plan amendment. Chapter 6, Horizon 2020. Item number 2 is consider text amendment, TA 43-12. Land Use Development Code, creating a CC 600 zoning district. And the third item is to consider request to use LMZ 12, 146 acres on northwest quadrant of the intersection of West 6th and 40th.
Mayor, just briefly, these three items do contain the package of land use applications necessary to accommodate the proposed Sports Village project at K10 and 6th Street. There's a state law requirement that a 20-day notice be provided to any affected township when you are considering a comprehensive plan amendment. We, about a month ago, anticipated a late August review of this item, and so we went ahead and provided that notice for tonight's meeting. As it evolved and as you have been provided information by staff, we find that we were a little bit early on that. To keep the notice string going for legally so that we don't have to restart our notice process with the township again, we found it prudent to keep it on your agenda tonight. We ask you to open the hearing, defer all three items really, and that just keeps the notice going to the township and allows you the time you need to keep looking at this matter.
Are all three of these items public hearing items?
Not formal hearing items. The hearings actually happen at the Planning Commission.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Other staff comments or questions? Okay, since we're going to defer that till next week, we're not going to take any public comment this week on it. Is that all right? Everybody happy with that? Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded, Dever Amix, to open the public meeting. And because we are going to defer this, I'd entertain a motion to continue it till next week.
Do you want to vote on the open?
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor of opening the meeting, signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, the meeting is open. And we, very good. Amix, Dever, all in favor say aye. Aye. Carries 5-0, deferred till the 28th. Next item on the agenda item number 4, receive request from downtown Lawrence to install a sign of community interest at the corner of 9th and Massachusetts Street.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Lynn Braddock-Zollner, Planning Office. Here this evening with a request from Downtown Lawrence Incorporated for a permanent directory sign to be placed in the downtown area. The proposed sign will be made of brick and limestone and will be about 9 feet tall, 2 feet thick, and 5 feet wide. The large center portion of the sign, which you can see, well, maybe right here, will be a map of the downtown area. Trainer Architects has designed the sign, and First Management will donate the materials and labor for the sign. Downtown Lawrence will be responsible for the maintenance of the sign. Originally, the sign was located, we were looking at the pedestrian plaza in front of the U.S. Bank building, in this area where the flagpoles exist today. And there were some issues with that site, and it was not in the public right-of-way. We still wanted to have it close to that plaza area, and so this went to the Historic Resources Commission last November, and they directed staff to work with DLI and Trainer Architects and try to find a solution for the placement in the public right-of-way at someplace close to the plaza area. We did meet on site with Trainer Architects, and they came up with 3 possible locations for the sign. The first location would be here where this tree and tree grate are located currently. The second possible location was right out here. This location started to get into the pedestrian pathway and also into the site triangle. Trainer Architects came up with a third position for the sign, which is across the street on the northeast intersection, side of the intersection, about 2 feet from this planter, so out in this direction. And this was reviewed by staff and got a unanimous agreement from staff that this was the best location for the sign. So staff's recommendation is location C if you choose to move forward with this project. So this evening we're looking for you to receive the request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Pretty straightforward. Thanks. Do you have a question, Mike?
Linda's the gentleman that runs the hot dog stand there, we have location there at that corner. That won't be affected in front of that cart there, or in front of the...
It's my understanding that he will not be affected, and I believe that Jonathan has had some communications with him.
I have not communicated directly with him, but Kathy Hamilton, director of DLI, has. I visited the site also when he was out there operating, and he sets up further to the north from where the sign is. It appears there would be sufficient for him to operate the sign.
And then the last question I have has to do with the, where the manhole is. The ground that's beneath that, is that secure enough ground, or there's no piping under there that this thing, I guess, is going to weigh a little bit?
Right.
It's
And
9 feet tall.
There'll be some footings, and one of the items in your staff review was that the sign will need to go through development services for the construction documents of the sign to make sure that we're not hitting any wires or utilities, or that it's firm and constructed well.
Questions? Okay, thank you. DLI?
I'm Mike Reiling. I'm a member of the Committee for Downtown Lawrence, Inc. We have actually went down and walked through, and first I wasn't in favor of C, but actually after we got down there as a committee and looked around, C seems to make the most sense. So we're in agreement with staff that C should be the place where it's located. We are grateful to First Management, Trainer Architects, BG Consultants, and Knology for this opportunity. We think this is going to be a great thing for downtown to have a membership directory, showing the location of all the various members of DLI. We support the C location. I suppose if we had a preference, it's probably in reverse order, C, B, and A, but C makes the most sense if you go down there and stand. This is going to allow us a great tool in downtown. We intend to keep it up to date. It's going to have to be redone every few months to keep it current, but it will allow people some information for downtown. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Length of time for construction of the sign?
Oh, I don't know. I think we've talked about sometime in November, hoping to have it here by Christmas. The start of the Christmas season, yes.
But we're not going to be torn up during the Christmas holiday at all.
No, and I don't think this is a great big tear-up deal either. I think it's something they can get done in a short period of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Other comments? Commission? Discussion?
I think it's helpful to have a sign. I can't tell you how many other communities I'm in. You go downtown and to an area like we have, and you have some sort of sign if you're coming into town and can figure out where to go to get barbecue or a haircut. For two things.
Mayor, I have one question. So are the only members of DLI going to be on this sign? Is that the plan?
That is the plan, is that the membership will be the ones listed on there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't know, we're just approving the sign, I guess, not how it's utilized, huh? I mean, it is a great service to downtown. I think if it's directing you to, downtown and not just members of an organization, then I think it's really helpful. I didn't realize that. Thanks for asking. I really assumed that would not be the case if it's a directory.
Yeah, the problem is resource management. If you start including anybody and everybody that's not a member of DLI, our number one asset that we have to offer right now is Kathy Hamilton, who's doing a great job. But if you start saying, okay, you're going to have to update this sign every 3 or 4 months for everybody that comes into downtown Lawrence, it becomes a real nightmare for DLI to try and manage. This isn't going to be a sign that goes up one time and nobody changes it. It's going to have to be changed probably every 3 to 4 months.
Right.
And so we would rather see Kathy, again, who's doing a great job, be out there doing the kinds of things that she's doing right now, which is putting together events, doing that rather than chasing down, knocking on door to door, trying to figure out who's at what door, what all this thing is. If they have to be DLI members.
Yeah, I would think it'd be fine to only include those who actually contact Kathy and make her aware so she doesn't have to chase it down. But again, I still think you're looking at a sign that's going to be pretty incomplete as far as it's not really a directory. Is it going to say that it's DLI members, or it's going to say downtown directory?
Well, we have a feeling that there needs to be some carrots to being a member of DLI. There needs to be a reason to become a member of DLI, and if everything DLI does is free, then there's no reason to belong to DLI. And this is a big carrot for DLI. It's a big expense, and it's going to be a big ongoing venture for DLI. And asking people to be a member of DLI to do that isn't that big a deal.
I don't know what the membership is, but what do we fund DLI from the city on an annual basis? Do we know?
How much? Yeah, it's about
46,000. Well, I really am of the opinion that this is a good service to people that are shopping downtown. I understand the carrot or wanting to entice people to join DLI, but I think it's really, I thought it was a great thing as far as growing business potentially downtown for all merchants, but I have trouble with just approving it for a certain group that pay dues to be a member of that. I mean, we fund $46,000 a year.
Well, and I understand you do, but then we're going to, and I understand you say you can come up with these rules on how you're going to do it, but then somebody's not happy with the rules and they're not on the sign, and then whose responsibility is that? Is it DLI's? I mean,
I would look to other downtowns for best practices and how they deal with that. I don't think coming up with a policy or how you deal with who gets on the sign or how they communicate getting on it needs to be something in writing or via email by X date if you want to be on the, I mean, I could do that with you after the meeting in 10 minutes probably. I don't think it's that big a deal.
Well,
all due respect, I don't,
yeah.
even if we goof now and again and there's one business that's missing or something here or there, that's one thing, but we're approving it knowing, I don't know how many businesses we're talking about that are not members of DLI. It won't be on what's supposedly a directory for downtown.
Well, I don't know that it's going to be that many, but I also don't believe you're going to find that there'll be that many left once that directory gets put up.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I don't know how many are not in DLI right now. We don't know that?
Well, we have,
Yeah, we don't.
sorry. I'm Kathy Hamilton. I'm the director of DLI, the administrator. We have about 100, we have 151 members in DLI right now. This kiosk was actually modeled after a very similar looking kiosk in downtown Overland Park. I sort of befriended their director early on in my tenure and saw this and thought it was something that we really needed here. The difference, of course, is that downtown Overland Park is a BID. And so everyone, you know, membership is mandatory, in other words. I do take your point, but I'm thinking, you know, we have people kind of stuck up in second floor offices and, you know, those sort of one-person shops, somebody with a shingle, somebody with a salon. It's going to be very, very difficult to manage. And frankly, I don't know that it's really fair to do that when some members are paying for the privilege and others are getting that advertisement, if you will, for free.
Can I ask, though, the costs of this there are no costs?
Well, we don't know. I mean, this is being donated. We are probably going to have to build the locked plexiglass case that will go on either side of the structure. We will print the map. We will manage the map, maintain the map. That's time. That's my time. But we also don't know, you know, there's some X factors. We don't know about, God forbid, vandalism. Mm-hmm. We don't know how much maintenance we're going to have to do. I'm assuming there will be costs. Sure. But because it's sort of a new animal for us, we really don't know what those costs will be. Sure. But it's like we publish a map, you know, DLI, and a guide to downtown, and those list our members only. So there's a hand map, if you will, circulating that we publish at our own expense, and those have members, DLI members only on it too.
Well, I think it's a great idea, Kathy, if I could. I think it's a great idea, and I appreciate the initiative to make it happen. I still have the same concerns, though, but
this is
I
not
understand
we don't have a frozen concept here. I mean, if we put this together and it doesn't work, we'll revisit it as a board, because we don't want it to not work. We think that if it's put together this way, it will work. And certainly you have, because you've got that money, you have the ability to communicate to us that you don't think it's working, and we'll change it. But the board unanimously believes strongly that if you allow this to go forward, at least give us a year. If it doesn't work in a year, we can talk about it, and we'll change it if we have to. If it doesn't work, we'll change it.
Sure.
So give us the year, see if it works. If it doesn't, then we'll come back here, and we'll be the first ones to want to change it, because it's got to be useful in order for it to do. But the board is adamant that this will work if you allow it. So give us a year to do it.
And I'm guessing you don't have to wait a year. You can change it anytime you feel like it's not working.
Sure, we can change it in 3 months if you're not happy with it. We think by the time Christmas rolls around, it's going to be there and we'll be able to review it. we'd be glad to come back down here and review it with you anytime you're not satisfied with it.
Well, a couple points here regarding what Kathy Hamilton said about all the little shops and things that are upstairs. I've got 30 offices where my office is, and they're all different entities. So, you know, there is a tremendous number of small one-person shops scattered all over the place that most of those people probably are not DLI members. A lot of them are in the service business, so it would be nice if they would be. The only thing I was thinking about is that if at some point in the future, if someone wanted to be listed on there, if they could pay a fee to be listed, say in the amount of $150 or $200. I mean, I don't know what the dues for the membership is, but if they had some philosophical reason why they didn't want to belong, I don't know what that'd be, but if they wanted to list their business, then they pay a $200 fee or $150 fee, and then they can get a listing.
And that was discussed at the board meeting, doing that, and I can't say we're close to that. That may be something that we'd be willing to do if somebody came in and said, look, I really just don't like you people, and I don't like what you're doing, but I want to have my name on the sign. I think we would consider that. This isn't a hard, fast rule. We don't want to come in front of you and misrepresent that this is going to be every business in downtown Lawrence, because we can't afford to continue to update that kind of list and trying to figure out who goes on what. We've got to have some discretion.
I appreciate that, but this is our chance. You may not have a hard, fast rule, but this is our one time here from this body to direct how this sign is going to be used. DLI may change how they want to do it later, but this is a sign that DLI is not paying for, that's on ground that DLI doesn't own, that DLI is going to be maintaining. But this is our chance right here, and this is our only chance, unless we decide to have it come back in front of us later and have control over this, but this is our chance to control it. I find it unlikely that we would want to just trust that it'll work later, it'll all work out in the end. This is what we have to do here, is to make some sort of a ruling on it that'll work, because this is our shot at doing that right here tonight.
Well, you can ask that it come back in 6 months. We're fine with that. Bring it back for a review and see how it's working. Condition it. Give us that chance to see how it works. If it's not working, then we can have the discussion. I don't think you have to pass it without some reservation.
Mike, how much room for the names of businesses are going to be on this sign? How much room is there? How many
Well,
businesses?
it's very tight, and that's going to be the other problem, is that Kathy's got a mock breakdown of it.
That's about half size.
Half size.
I got a full size over here that I can roll up.
You have a full size?
This is half size.
Only if you keep smiling.
Yeah,
If you keep smiling.
yeah. If you stop smiling, you got to back up.
You roll out the full size?
No,
Just you get in the
they can't-
microphone.
They can't pick you up on the audio at home, so.
Well, you guys want to pass it around?
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, thanks.
Chris Cunningham, our architect from Trainer, is telling me that that's about a 50% scaled down prototype there. Oh, I didn't know you brought that. Right now, I think there are about 142 listings there. The directory was done at this point several months ago, so there would be, as of today, probably with government buildings and that kind of thing, about 160 entries. I would also point out, too, that the map is going to have utility for those people in the second floor of Bob's building, regardless of whether they're listed or not. If somebody comes and says, well, I'm going to 720 or 721 Mass, there is a map of downtown. I mean, this is what we lack. We don't, frankly, it's a fairly easy downtown to navigate. The grid is fairly simple to figure out. But a lot of times, people will come to town and they'll need to get their bearings. And so it serves that purpose, too, on its most basic level.
Thank you. Other questions?
I just have a couple full.
I just saw a gap in there, in the
So
businesses.
I love the idea. This is great. People walk up, they got an hour and they need to find something. This is exactly what we need downtown. The fact that the city provides money to DLI and the fact that we'll be providing the site location for this sign, I think it changes the character for us on this decision, because we are approving a right-of-way, a permanent one, relatively speaking, for this sign. And then the dollars that we continue to fund, I feel like, we need to take that into consideration. And I think, as Hugh's pointing out, the reason I asked whether or not you had to be a member of DLI, because you implied it, I just wanted to make sure I was clear. And it really doesn't say exactly anywhere that only members of DLI are on this list. So I'm a little bit hesitant to just say, yeah, we'll just see. I'm with Aaron on, I think we need to maybe talk about, before we finalize the actual content of the sign, maybe approve the sign location, improve the sign perimeter design, and then decide how we want to address how buildings are listed. Because for this to be useful, it needs to be able to steer people. People will want to come to it and use it. And if they don't know anything about Lawrence and they're looking for a business and it's not on there, then they're not going to use it again. So I see it being a detriment to the potential users of DLI, because if the sign isn't useful and if somebody can't find what they're looking for the first time, they're not going to look at it again, or they may not try to use it again because they couldn't use it the first time. So just like any map, it has to have utility and it has to have a consistent application for use and for the user. And so for me, if somebody walks up to it, can't find the business they're looking for on it, they'll probably won't even refer to it again. So I see it potentially impacting DLI members as well in a negative way, because people won't use it if it doesn't show all the buildings that are downtown, or at least all the businesses that want to apply. If they don't want to apply, that's their problem. But I'm hesitant to just say go for it and just include members of DLI, because city funds are used to help pay for DLI. And for me, that's one of the important factors here.
Mike, you got a comment?
Well, as we look at this sign, one side of me says, yeah, let's go ahead and do it the way it's proposed, but one of the things that happens too, when I look at the actual size of the banner that's going to be placed there, if you fill it up much more, how small is the print going to be that you're not going to be able to see it anyway?
Yep.
So you got to be careful of that too, or if you're going to take the map out, then you're going to lose some of it also.
Yep.
So I guess, and Mike, as you mentioned before, we can talk about the location, but, before, I guess as we look at expanding, the banner itself to include a little bit of everybody, I'd like to see how small that actual print's
Yeah.
going to be and what it's going to look like, because
That's a
it'll
good
take
point.
away from everything.
Because if it's not useful,
Yeah,
people won't use
don't
it
put it
anyway.
there.
It's just a,
Well, one of the things, it's going to be virtually, or practically impossible to capture every business, because there's turnover all the time. I mean,
we don't want that.
you wouldn't know who they are most of the time. I mean, not 100% of the entities, so.
And it's going to have to be updated, and then when you do start throwing every small business in there, then you've got to make a decision on, at some point, the map becomes unmanageable. And that's going to be a problem too. So if we try to set some sort of bright line rule from the city, I think you have a lot of control over DLI. You certainly have a budget item every year, and you're going to be able to talk to us, and you're going to have our attention on what goes on. Again, just give us a few months to try it, and it's not like you don't have a hammer. You've got a hammer, you do. And you can come back and say, we're
Mike,
not happy
I'm sorry,
with you.
we don't want to use a hammer. There's a couple things. One is, I'm thinking there is a happy medium probably. I agree, we don't want it to be overblown, and I don't want to sit and try and dictate the policy. It needs to be thought, I think, out a little bit more. I just want to make sure it's a service to people. So if they're coming to look for a retailer downtown and there's, I don't know how many that are just missing from the map, they may not know they even exist here to meet the need they're looking for. Even if looking at the sign right now, if the membership grows, as your hopes are, and I'm sure under Kathy's direction that it probably will grow, you might already have a problem anyway with the sign not being big enough, just to fit members. It doesn't look, it looks like it's already on the verge of being a little small. So I don't know, is it two-sided? Do we need to maybe revisit the dimensions? But I think also we kind of need to think about that policy. Not to say just run with it tonight, but maybe we think about it, defer this, look at the dimensions, to make sure when we put it there, it really is something that works. I mean, I've seen them in other downtowns too. This is a one-sided thing, right? Or no?
Two-sided.
It is two-sided.
two-sided.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a great idea. Split it north and south, and put all the north on one side and the south on the other. And
One thing here, this is probably the most important thing on this agenda item, was the content, and it's absent from our materials. We have no idea, we didn't know about this. This is a huge gap, and we don't have the information necessary tonight to make a decision on this because it wasn't presented to us ahead of time. So we're going to have to get this and take a look at it. In my opinion, we're not there.
Okay, there's two parts we're talking about. One's the physical sign, the second is the media that's going to show up on the sign. Are we comfortable approving the sign tonight, building the sign, and then come back at a later date and approve the media part of it?
yes,
Is that sufficient?
I am.
Yeah, I think the media, they could impact the sign, I guess, depending on how many go on it, but
Well, let's have the architect stand forward here, please. That looks to be like a pretty good size sign. The question is, if there's more content that we need to have on it, might it need to be a bigger sign physically?
Yes, I think so. Right now, the sign board itself is 30 inches by 4'6". The way that we've envisioned this, you stand on one side, you're looking to the north. That's how the sign would be oriented, north up. So you would be standing there, you would see, the business to the north, you go that way. The other side is intended to be banners, 8.5 by 11, such as, Busker Fest next weekend, July or August, whatever it is. Because of, Lawrence downtown, it's a very linear orientation, the listing. The fear is that we get a lot of those businesses on there, the text becomes smaller and less readable. So then you could be wider to add another column. But, right now it's at 152 businesses. This is a draft from about 3 or 4 months ago. So, we could go ahead and mock up another line and see what, the width becomes. I know there is some concern about the size and the height. Proportionally, I think it's right. It's got a solid base, the columns, the horizontal, the cap. Proportionally, I think it's correct. So to make it bigger, to fit more businesses, I think that would be probably something we would have to look at further.
Without me trying to read those dimensions that
9
are
by 5.
somewhat blurry, what's the total height of that
I
structure?
believe it is 9 feet, or 9'1", thereabouts.
And the width is left to right?
5.
5 feet, I guess.
Yeah, I'd have a little bit concern about making it a whole lot bigger
So it's a
than
pretty
that.
good sized sign right now. Yeah, that's my point. It's,
It'll block your door if it's too much bigger.
Well, and there's a problem with the historic resources
Yeah.
Okay.
approving the sign, so if
all
you
right.
start messing with the dimensions of the sign, we've got to start way back. And we're not going to make it by November for a sign by then.
Let's see if there's any public comment on this item, and then we'll try and get some direction to you. Is there any public comment regarding this agenda item? Okay, commission discussion? You want to approve the sign, the physical sign, and wait and see about the media, or do you want to table the whole thing and come back with more information?
Mayor, I've got a concern. The only thing that we have on our agenda is to approve the physical sign. I don't think that we have any control over the media except for the approval of the sign itself. I don't see that in here. I mean,
We approved it with the idea that they can't put any media up until they come back. I think that's a condition we can put on it.
is that a possibility? Do we have that ability? Sure.
Because you're operating essentially as landlord here, I mean, it's on the public right-of-way, is my understanding. So, I mean, you're controlling it through that vehicle. I think you can dictate pretty much everything as long as you're not going too far in regards to any kind of First Amendment issues, but I don't have any problem with any of the discussion so far, so.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to throw a wrench in this, but those are a couple key pieces we didn't have in advance, so I thought it was going to kind of be a no-brainer. But the only concern I have about going ahead with the physical and then saying, but we still want to approve the media part, is that the physical could be impacted. I mean, are we wanting them to move forward with ordering a sign and then be told, well, we can't accommodate what you would like us to do with it because the dimensions aren't right?
I don't think
Or do we
anybody's
wanna
going to
just
approve
defer
a
the item?
physical sign, based on the fact that we may be changing what that banner or what, the written word's going to be, the media's going to be in there. I would suggest you don't do that. But, at this point, I'd say, let's wait a week or so until we get, all the word back in.
I feel better deferring and being able to talk it through.
I mean, the location is fine, but, if we're going to change the size of that sign based on what that print's going to be.
Or it says business directory, which is misleading. Maybe to say DLI membership directory, or,
Our agenda, I mean, it says right here that this sign is going to be, to get on it, you pay to get on it, and then it's something different.
Okay, we've got too many divergent ideas here, so let's defer it for a couple weeks. Maybe you've heard the discussion, Mr. Eiling, that concerns we have, maybe you can come back with a solution.
I guess my question is, who do we work with from the city standpoint to get that
Gentleman
worked
right
out?
there in the suit on.
I think we'll talk, what I hear is what's the content, probably what we need to do. I mean, I know that a lot of this is kind of pro bono with some of the consultants, but Chris might be able to give us some idea of what, if we added every business in the downtown area, what that print scale would look like. You all want to see that ahead of time so you can get some view of it. I think one of the other comments has been, what about pay to play? Can you pay to get on there and not be a member of DL? And you all need to talk about that, and the commission, as the landlord of that property, needs to make a decision about what you want to allow there.
And the physical size of the sign based on their final media content.
Right, and we'll have to have then discussions with other staff about, at what point do we get so much change that it's got to go back through that process again. Right.
And one comment that I do also want to make is that I disagree with the idea that once you approve it, it's done and you'd have no control over it. I think you can approve it subject to a 6-month review with regard to the content. I think you can do that. So I know there was something of once you approve it, it's done. I don't know whether that's the official position of the city, but I don't think that's right. So I don't know who you consult for that, but we'd like to, I think you can approve this thing for 6 months and we can come back and revisit it, and if we have to change the
But we're not going to
content
approve it
of
tonight.
Right, that's the point.
That's been the consideration of the commission. And is 2 weeks sufficient time for you to want to come back and visit with us?
Yes.
Okay, we can't do it next week. We've got too much stuff on the agenda for next week.
That just gives us one day, too. So, if you put it on for next week, then we've got a
because
day and a
Thursday's
half
publication
to
day.
work
Okay,
out
so-
everything, so.
So 2 weeks from tonight, we'll have it back on this agenda, so you can get on with the building of it, so.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is to receive a petition from River Bend Court area residents requiring annexation of 1742 East 1350 Road.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I thought I would provide just a brief background of this issue for you, and also update you, since there's been some items that have been posted to your agenda since the agenda came out on Thursday. This item is a receipt of a petition from several residents along Riverbend Court, Riverbend Circle, and Sunchase Drive concerning I think the petition had grown out of concerns that the neighbors in the city had expressed regarding an adjacent county property owner, Alan Cobb, who was shooting a rifle on his property at 1742 East 1350 Road. In visiting with the sheriff's office and Mr. Cobb, since this petition was received by the city, it appears that the county did not prohibit this type of activity. And my understanding is that Mr. Cobb had gone to the sheriff's office and had asked for guidance on this prior to shooting on his property. Also, my understanding from talking with the sheriff's office and as included in your agenda update this evening, there's a letter from Lieutenant Gary Bunting with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office concerning this matter, and it appears that they had some concerns related to this activity on the property, and on August the 10th had provided Mr. Cobb with a temporary verbal abatement under their nuisance code to require him to stop shooting on the property. And my understanding from visiting with Mr. Cobb is that he has been abiding by that order, and also the sheriff's office confirms that in the letter as well. This item, it appears that there may be an opportunity in talking with the sheriff's office as well as the county administrator regarding this issue, that there may be some further steps that the county could consider at their level regarding making this abatement order a more temporary situation. And that may be an opportunity to proceed with looking at that regarding this issue. So a possible outcome this evening might be deferring the discussion on the annexation until the county can consider the matter and provide some correspondence back. The item before you is just providing staff direction on this issue, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think you meant a more permanent, I think you said temporary, but you meant a more permanent resolution to it.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, there has been a temporary one, but there's a possibility of making something more permanent. Sorry about that.
Any questions from staff? Okay, is the member of the neighborhood group here who would like to make a comment? Come forward, state your name, sign in please, and
I already signed in, but my name is John Barnett. I live at 500 Riverbend Court. We're standing here tonight. This is not about gun rights. This is about security of the neighborhood. And we believe that because of this temporary abatement order, that this is not permanent. We want something permanent. We want to have something resolved. So our kids are safe. And so we feel safe because we do know, and some of you are gun owners here, and I'm a gun owner myself. In fact, most of the people that signed that petition are gun owners, and some of them are members of the NRA, and they will tell you what Mr. Cobb is doing was very unsafe. Bullets travel. He was firing with 22. 22 carries about 800 yards, and we're far less than 800 yards. Some of us are 50 yards away to about 75 yards away from his property. And also, I don't know about some of you, but when you shoot, especially among trees, I was the king of ricochets, and I would have bullets ricocheting all over the place, especially with the trees, and it's just unsafe. The NRA will say it's unsafe and it's manual, and I have no objection to Mr. Cobb shooting, but I shoot at a gun range, or I shoot in a place where there's no one around. As I stand before you, I have members here. I've worked with the mayor. I've worked with some of you here. And so I appreciate what you guys have led me through this. We're not angry. We just want something resolved. That's all. Thank you very much for your time.
thank you. Is Mr. Cobb here? Yes. If you'll come forward, please. Sure. And if you'd state your name and address for the press, please. And
yeah, I'm, excuse me, I'm Alan Cobb at 1742 East 1350 Road. And apparently I am the hooligan in question. You know, first of all, I really can't add anything to the letter that, you know, I believe you all have a copy to. I can't say any more than what's in that letter. But I do want to state, and I'll address this to you, but pertains to the residents of that Sunchase neighborhood. August 10th, when Douglas County Sheriff Sergeant Nelson came out to my house again, and he brought with him this Chapter 7 nuisance, Article 1 and 2, prohibiting nuisance within the county and noise control. So, you know, all of the Sheriff's Department has been, you know, very cordial, and I've been cooperative with them. And of all the times that when I do start to shoot, I call in when I start, I call in when I stop. And my range had been approved by the Douglas County Sheriff. And this happens, you know, maybe once every week, maybe twice a month for about 15 to 20 minutes. But what really kind of concerns me right here is really actually the neighborhood itself. You know, sometimes you learn the character natures of the people that are around you. And addressing this actually pertains to all the people here that are involved in this. That for one, I didn't know that there was a daycare center out there. I guess it's a registered daycare center. I don't know. It doesn't make any difference. I didn't know it was there. And the fellow that made the statement the other night that he has to take cover, okay, when he hears shots. My concern is that if these people were all that concerned about it, why didn't anybody come to me and talk with me about this? You know, if, especially whoever has the daycare center and whoever had to take cover, or anybody could have come and talked to me and we could have figured this thing out. You know, we could have made some concessions. There's a lot of room back there, and there are a lot of trees. I suppose a ricochet could happen. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying it's highly unlikely that would happen. But, you know, nobody ever approached me. We could have made some concessions on this. But, you know, to me, anybody that's concerned would have come to me. But I know I would have. If it were me making the complaint, I'd have been up there knocking on the man's door and saying, hey, you know, what's happening? You're shooting and stuff, you know, let's see what's going on here. You know, yeah, I'm not unapproachable. You know, they could have done that.
Let me ask a couple questions here. And I appreciate your comments. I had a good conversation with you yesterday.
Yes, sir.
And it seems like you're trying to abide by the action that the sheriff asked you to move on with. And is it your intent not to fire the gun anymore on this property ever again?
Yes, when I had the conversation with Sergeant Nelson, I just kind of thrown up my hands and said, you know, this isn't worth it. You know, I'll quit. And that was on August 8th, way before this petition come out. You know, this petition right here doesn't have anything to do with the annexation of my property. I don't want to be annexed into the city for a number of reasons, and I'm sure that the commission knows the difference between the city and the county and the restrictions, taxes, and things like that.
Just let me ask a question here, maybe move this along. I'm going to speak for myself. I don't have any interest in annexing you if we can resolve this problem. And that's what we talked about on the phone the other day. And so would you be opposed for us to ask the county commission to place a permanent abatement on your land so that would restrict?
Well, as long as it just affected me and doesn't affect, you know, county at all, you know, not Douglas County, because there's a lot of people out in the country that shoot and stuff. You know, I don't care. You know, that's fine with me. I've kind of thrown my hands up in the air and don't want to waste anybody else's time, your time, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office time, or anything.
So
but
you would be in accordance with us sending a letter to the county commission asking that they review this and possibly put a permanent abatement on the property for the safety of the people that were surrounding you?
Of shooting firearms?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that.
Would you ask, have that as a separate agreement, or would you ask it to be like a covenant on the property?
I don't know that you're in the covenants.
It's a deed restriction.
Or some kind of deed restriction?
An abatement can be permanent. I mean, it seems like you're doing.
Well, it seems like when you're tracking it, it's easier to find if it's attached to a deed than it would be
There's
to
gonna be a whole
an
bunch of
agreement.
people here that knows that know the.
Oh, I understand that, Mayor, but, I'm just saying that all of us may not be around for a long time.
You have a comment to that?
I just going to respond, I don't know, Commissioner Amix, whether we know exactly the legal wording or authority for the county abatement proceeding, so we can certainly ask that it be, if that's the direction, that it be made permanent, and that the county give consideration that it run with the land and have some type of permanent recording to it. I don't know if that's possible or not.
Well, what if we direct staff to come back to us with what our options are with regards to this, such that it becomes a permanent situation and puts the neighborhood at ease about possible firearms in the future?
Okay, if you could, maybe we could just go ahead and send this to the county with our recommendations, and they could come up with a solution, and we could determine whether that met our needs or not. And if it doesn't, then we have other tools in our toolbox here.
We could consider.
That way we don't have to see it twice.
Yeah, well, I've been in contact with Jim Flory, who's our district representative, and there seems to be some type of confusion on who's got the ball, whose court is it in. It's a city issue because the complainants live in the city and brought it to you, or a county which the county has no information on this. So I mean, it's a pretty good idea that y'all get it figured out, whichever way it is. Nonetheless, it's not going to change my my thought on firing my gun. I mean, I did that on my own and basically, gave up my right just to appease everybody, because I'm not trying to start any trouble, But I'm just about done here. And like I say, I could have been approached and I could have done something different, with my range back there. I can make that safe enough to where I could guarantee you there would not be a shell that would be possible to ricochet anywhere. But then again, there would probably be the complaint of a nuisance or noise, which a .22 caliber rifle doesn't make, much more noise, than the fireworks and firecrackers that they shoot off over there on the 4th of July. But I think that's illegal, though, isn't it?
All right, let's...
But anyway, never mind. But anyway, that's about all I have to say.
Then we'll try and come up with a solution here.
Okay. Well, I thank the commission and the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and I'll close with just saying I'm just a law-abiding citizen.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm not into rebuttals. Go ahead and one quick moment. We're trying to...
Actually, Mr. Mayor and the City Council, we just took a little poll here. We are for that. We will do the permanent abatement. That's no problem.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right, so Aaron, did you want to make a motion?
Just motion to, authorize a letter to be sent to the county commission requesting that some sort of a permanent abatement mechanism be drawn up to prevent the discharge of firearms on this particular property within the county.
Second.
Along those lines.
Move Cromwell, second Dever. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Mr. Cobb, thanks for coming down. Neighbors, thanks for getting petition this.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Next. Consider adopting joint city ordinance 8719 establishing the Joint Economic Development Council for the City of Lawrence, Douglas County.
Mayor, members of the commission, you've considered this item a couple times the past few months, or on May 8th, and then on June the 19th, you directed us to prepare this joint ordinance, county resolution, establishing the Joint Economic Development Council. We believe that it responds to your direction in regards to the duties and makeup and such concerning the council. It replaces an existing board that has been dormant for several years. I think we're excited to get this set up. Craig Weinau, Greg Williams, and I have met recently, and if this proceeds, we want to get going with meetings and strong activity in this area, because we understand it's an important priority of the community and the city commission. So again, we think it's straightforward and responds to your earlier direction. So be happy to take any questions. I know that there's members of the public that wish to speak to it as well.
We have a presentation by the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, Mr. Corliss. Greg Williams is my name. I'm privileged to serve the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce as its president and CEO. I've been on board about 2 months plus, and have been directly involved in formation of the language of the proposed ordinance. Strongly encourage adoption this evening of the Joint Economic Development Council ordinance. Really, in the big scheme of things, what we're talking about is not reinventing the wheel. That was never the intent, but to provide enhanced transparency in the conversation of economic development in Lawrence and Douglas County, encouraging enhanced public involvement, public dialogue, conversation relative to the policies, the utilization of incentives, targeted marketing, and more importantly than anything else, reviewing budget requests that come before the Chamber Board, and more importantly, the City and County Commission. We have identified we believe, a very workable number of participants who will be invited, again, with adoption of the ordinance both at the city and county level. Certainly the Chamber Board will have its input once adoption has occurred at both governmental bodies. We have a good number of people that we can reach out to for citizen involvement, again, to encourage the transparency relative to utilization of city and county taxpayer funds, as well as the funds that the Chamber dedicates to its economic development, national business development, industrial development program. Be happy to address any and to respond to any questions, concerns that members of the commission may have. But we're very excited about this opportunity to bring additional transparency, to deepen the relationship that we as a Chamber of Commerce, as a business advocate, and more importantly, as a evolving economic development player in eastern Kansas and across the country. We're very excited and anxious to get going and to work closer with you, and frankly closer with neighborhood associations, with special interest groups in the community, as well as bodies like yours, in making policy and moving the needle in the facilitation of quality jobs for this community and its people and its families, as well as the capital investment that comes along with the creation of those jobs and the resulting tax revenues that raises the bar for everyone. Again, I'd be happy to address or to respond to any questions, but we're anxious to get this initiative underway. And thank you very much for your consideration.
Questions? Thank you.
Mayor, thank you.
Members of the public for comment?
My name is Don Delaney, and I've been a small business owner here for about 20 years in the community, and I'm a geologist, a professional geologist in this state and in several other states. And I'm kind of interjecting now after listening to the last speaker about development and economic development. I have, last 4 years, been working on a process that really goes with the rec center, and I'm all for the rec center and all the other development. I have a plan that I've put together. I've passed it by my peers. I've also passed it by some university professors. But the problem is there a way for me to address my ideas to save money for these projects without doing it publicly first, because of the methods at which I'm going to propose?
Seems like we're a little bit off the subject.
Well, that's true.
We're trying to get to a resolution here of a
Would you
policy-making
like me to
committee.
discuss this later then after that?
I'll tell you what, why don't you talk to Dave Corliss, our city manager, when we get a chance. We'd love to hear what you have to say. It sounds like some of your ideas are proprietary and you don't want them.
Well, I don't know
in
if
the
they're
public.
proprietary. I mean, the technology is out there and the technology is getting better.
All right.
But the savings are quite significant.
Okay.
Especially on the
We'd love
rec
to hear what you have to
center
say.
and the farmland industries to help bring more business into our community.
Was your last name Flanagan?
Don Delaney.
Don Delaney, okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Laura Ruth. I just have a question about the proposed ordinance 8719. I'm wondering if you all can provide an example of the sort of budget requests that this ordinance would empower the proposed body to approve. So,
Any other comments? We'll get to that answer here in just a minute. Any other comments? All right, staff, can you give us a response to that question?
In regards to the budget requests, we put the budget for the economic development efforts of the Chamber of Commerce on the city website when we had this item back on June the 19th, and set out a number of kind of responses to frequently asked questions, and that budget sets out how they get their revenue at the Chamber of Commerce in regards to funding from the city and the county, and some funds from their membership through certain drives and such, and then how they spend the money as far as their staffing and then their marketing efforts and those types of things. And the view of, at least that I have of the ordinance is that prior to the city staff receiving and ultimately the city commission considering the proposed annual budget for the Chamber of Commerce's economic development efforts, one of the tasks of this group, certainly not the only task, but one of the tasks of the Joint Economic Development Council will be to review that budget and to make comment on it, and then recommend it to the various governing bodies, the city commission and the county commission. I mean, but the budget's set out. I mean, I'll scroll down here just a second, and I think I can get you the total dollar amount here in a second.
Well, while you're looking, if I could just interject, I think the key word in Lori asked there was what items they would approve, and they actually don't approve. They would be recommending.
They don't have any spending authority. And, the spending authority is with the city commission, county commission, and obviously the Chamber of Commerce spends money as well, but this is not it's an advisory board that looks at policies and recommendations. They would likely make recommendations in regards to this budget. They might make recommendations in regards to workforce training, which has been a topic that we've had interest in, and I know that Greg has a lot of interest in, is already working on. They might make interest in regards to some of the policies that we have in regards to public incentives. They may make recommendations on a number of other issues in regards to growing primary jobs within the community. But they don't have any governing authority. They don't make any final decisions. That rests with the elected officials for the city's policies, county commission for the county's policies, whatever the chamber policies might have, that'd be the chamber board of directors. I think that's what, responsive to what Laura asked.
Yeah, I think she asked specifically what type of budget requests, because of, under the duties it says include the approval of budget requests to the chamber. So what type, I don't know, have you lined out those?
The the annual budget of the Chamber of Commerce's economic development efforts that is on the city's website.
So budget and requests?
Yeah, budget requests. Yeah. I think that's pretty much the extent of it. They're not going to, this group is not an operating board like the city commission. You approve all of our bills. That's what the first thing you did tonight was add claims on to that. This board doesn't do that.
It's not an autonomous,
Council doesn't do
self-governing
that.
group.
That's
It's an
correct.
advisory group.
That's right.
Comments?
No other, we're done with public comment?
Any other public comment on this item?
No.
I think we're done.
Mayor, we've been through, the process of this and rewriting of this ordinance, I think, a couple of times.
It started in early December, I remember.
But, the membership and what the requirements would be considered as part of this, that's changed, quite a few times. So I do appreciate, Lord, the way your questions there, I think, fine. I look at this, I guess, a little bit in the same way as I look at, say, a public incentive review. It's not. The public incentive review and what they do, and they make recommendations and how monies or different projects, are to be considered by the city or the county commission. So I think that this is just another way to help, public be able to see, the kind of efforts that are going on and how, the dollars that have been dedicated are going to continue to be spent and be spent in a wise way. So, again, I appreciate your comment, but I think just getting to the point of being able to establish the membership and the duty of responsibility, I think has been a long time coming, but I do think that it's just a way for the public to become more involved and people to, groups to become, or this group to be able to come involved and really looking at and making solid recommendations to this body and to the county.
Yeah, it's this, as I said here a few minutes ago, started, I think, about early December, and it was not well received at first by anybody. The chamber didn't like it, the public didn't like it, but through working with it, we got everybody on board, or as nearly as possible, everybody, and we've changed the mix of the council itself so that it's more reflective of the city at large, and there's enough public officials that are elected that are on there that gives it some balance in terms of the elected personnel that has to stand to the voters. So I think it's a good overall compromise, and I do believe it's going to make it a lot more, this whole economic development a little bit more visible, a lot more transparent. So I think it's a good resolution, a good ordinance.
Yep, I would echo that. I think staff and the chamber and everybody that was involved in the tweaking of it too. And I couldn't help but note when the CEO of the chamber is talking about the appreciation of enhanced transparency and encouraging public's inputs, specifically neighborhood associations, special interest groups, as far as how we handle incentives and budget requests and whatnot. I think that I hope that is certainly recognized as a real positive about this. I think so. The transparency that this creates and the involvement of having the neighborhood representation there as well, I think not only will it answer questions, but my hope is, and my belief, just based on what I know about our economic development efforts and a lot of other things happening behind the scenes as far as trying to create job growth here, is that it'll actually generate some real excitement where we're all working together toward these projects. And there's a lot of good things that are happening, and the more people that are aware of them, I think the better. So I'm glad we're at this point.
I'd entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 8719.
Moved.
Moved Carter, second Amix. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thanks to everybody who worked on that. Next item on the agenda is consider approving a draft policy regarding transfers. Time isn't there, I can't tell. Regarding transfers from the city's enterprise funds to the general operating fund. Staff?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Commission. I'm Casey Toomey. I'm the budget manager for the city. We're here tonight to talk about our proposed transfer policy. We first brought you a proposed policy back in September of last year. The policy was also included in our study session materials from our May budget study session, and we're here again tonight. What started all of this was a recommendation from our city auditor that we have a policy that sets out how we come up with the amount that we transfer from the city's enterprise funds to our general operating fund. Based on that recommendation, staff contacted a number of different communities that have publicly held utilities and reviewed their policies and practices. We've provided you with an outline of some of those communities and what they do. The conclusion from that research was that while a lot of cities don't have transfer policies, they do make transfers. In a lot of communities, they're not referred to as transfers. Some call them franchise fees or payment in lieu of franchise fees. Some communities refer to them as simply administrative fees. What that means is they sometimes appear in a different line of the city's budget. So while you may see in our budget, they're reflected in a transfer into the general fund line item, they show up differently in other cities. That makes it sometimes difficult to compare on an apples-to-apples basis, but just wanted to point that out for all of you. The policy that we have put forth has three different components. The first is a payment in lieu of a property tax payment. Privately held utilities pay property tax. That property tax is used to support police protection, fire protection, the work that you all do for the city clerk, city manager's office, etc. The policy sets out or proposes that publicly held utilities of the city would do the same. We use a method similar to what the state does to assess the value of our city utilities, and would apply the assessment rate of 33%, which is the same as what the state does. The second element of the policy is a payment in lieu of a franchise fee. Privately held utilities currently pay 5% franchise fee of, 5% of their gross receipts. That is the maximum allowed under state law. There is no state law referring to a franchise fee for water and sewer utilities. So our proposal is that that would be a 7% franchise fee. The rationale behind the higher rate is that while it's twofold. First, while privately held utilities do repair the work that they do in the city's right-of-way, that's paid for by those privately held utilities. A lot of times that's happening for water and sewer projects. That work's being done by city crews. Also, a lot of water and sewer lines are located under city streets. Even when you repair those city streets, the streets are never the same. Once that initial cut is made into a brand new street, the street's integrity is not ever the same. Finally, the third element of our transfer policy is using a variety of different cost allocation methods to allocate general overhead expenses. Rather than have each of our city utilities have their own HR function, payroll functions, finance functions, it makes more cost sense to have those administrative services provided centrally. So the proposed policy comes up with different methods to allocate the costs of those services to the city's different enterprise funds. The policy also does provide that the transfers should be offset by salaries paid and the cost of services provided by the enterprise funds. An example of that would be city facilities don't pay currently for water and sewer service. We do calculate what those costs are, and we've offset the amount of the transfer according to what those amounts would be. Another example would be a number of city employee salaries are in many cases split. Some are paid from the general operating fund, a portion of them, another portion paid from one of the enterprise funds. Under this policy, credit, if you want to call it that, is given for the amount of those salaries and benefits. I think I'll stop there and entertain questions. Do you have any questions? Okay.
Don't go away. Is there any member from the public who would like to visit with us about this?
Good evening. My name is Bobby Flory, and I'm with the Lawrence Home Builders Association. The Lawrence Home Builders Association does not object to transfers. We support the creation of a transfer policy to guide you during your process as you review the budget. We appreciate that we have had meetings in the past with the city manager last fall, and I'm hopeful that we can continue discussing this because we do not feel that the policy is appropriate yet. The transfer should be made for services provided to or by the utilities department. The utility fund is a fee-based fund. It's necessary when you charge a fee to have a relationship between the fee charged and the service provided. Given that, we support transfers from the utility fund to the general fund for overhead expenses. We also support transfers to the utility fund from the general fund for services provided by other departments, as Casey was talking about previously. We oppose the city treating the utility infrastructure as a private utility for the purpose of taxing and charging franchise fees. To simply transfer an assessed tax and franchise fee to the general fund removes the relationship between the collected utility fee and their intended purpose. The policy as proposed does not assure fee payers, which the reason that we are concerned is because the builders pay impact fees that are passed on to the homeowners. And then, of course, the water, once homeowners and business owners are paying their water fees, those are the other payers. They are not assured that their fees are spent for the purposes in which they're collected, and that they are not for costs that should be possibly tax supported rather than utility expenses. Transparency would be best achieved if an effort would be made to track the list of expenditures that are non-overhead. It's pretty easy to quantify the the overhead expenses. It's the non-overhead expenses that are going to be more difficult to quantify. And I know that's a big task, but I think working with Casey and City Manager Dave Corliss, that we can make an effort to do that. I think that's important to keep that relationship between the fee payer, the fee, and the expense. As I said, we pay attention to this because the builders do pay impact fees. I'm kind of surprised that more individual, water and sewer payers aren't down here concerned about this, but we'd like to see some more time put on this. I felt like we got off to a good start last fall and would like to continue that discussion. And instead, I kind of feel like we're right back to square one where we left off at the last year's budget sessions. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question. What do you mean by that last statement? We're back to square one. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
Yes, what I mean is that we had a transfer policy proposed last summer during the budget study sessions, and then at that time, the commission directed the city manager to work with my group, other groups interested. I think the chamber was involved as well, and kind of try to discuss ways that maybe we can come up with a policy that more of us feel good about and that's right. And I felt like we were moving toward maybe understanding one another's concerns and coming up with maybe something, at least heading toward the direction of coming up with something that we all felt met our goals. From us, transparency, from the city manager, making sure that the expenses were properly covered, which we all acknowledge is fair and right. It's just how that is covered. And then the process, then we didn't have any more discussion. Budget study session rolls around again, and we have a duplicate of the policy that we started with last year. So that's what I meant by that statement.
Okay.
Questions? Thank you.
One clarification, I'm sorry, before you sit down. When you take actual project cost, Bobby, you're talking about tracking the individual projects and then the fee being assessed after?
Well, we talked about that, and that's one of the challenges that Dave identified, is that when, the Public Works Department is repairing a street that was disturbed because of a sewer or water project, there are costs involved with that. But I think that, I'm not saying it will be an easy task, but I think it's possible to start tracking some of those. We've got a very talented person that works with our budget, and I know that's a little different than, budget is different than the actual expenses and dealing with the finance department. I know she has a different task, but I think that, it's possible that it could be tracked. So that's,
Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments?
Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Luke Bell with the Lawrence Board of Realtors again. I think it was about 2 to 3 weeks ago that we discussed this same issue. Appreciate the opportunity to come back again. I'm going to echo a lot of Bobby's comments. Like I said during the budget testimony I provided a couple of weeks ago, our concern is not the amount of the transfer policy. It's not that we do make transfers from the enterprise funds to the city general fund. Our concern is putting a policy in place that will most likely be a policy that is not addressed again for a very long time. That will effectively govern the transfers for the next at least decade. And part of the problems we see with the policy, in terms of the description that was just given, the number one thing I think everybody can agree on is that the Utilities Department should be paying for the cost of the services that are provided to them. I think that is indisputable. It's an indisputable fact that when another city department has to expend resources that have been generated through the mill levy, through property tax revenues, back to the Public Works Department, or the Utilities Department. The Utilities Department should be required to pay some type of compensation for that. From an economic efficiency perspective, that is a good thing. That's good public policy. If the Utilities Department had to go out and hire their own HR personnel, they had to go out and hire their own attorneys, they had to go out and hire all their own purchasing, budgeting people, that would be extremely expensive, in our opinion. So it makes good economic sense that the city provides those services to the Utilities Department, and the Utilities Department should be required to pay for those services. So we absolutely agree that the Utilities Department should be required to remit those monies to the general fund to compensate for those services. In our meeting last year, the discussion came up, the Utilities Department is attempting to pay for growth, essentially. We're putting capital improvement projects in the works. We're expanding the reach of our utilities, which of course encourages economic development in our community. We're absolutely in favor of that. As part of that, the discussion was when a new water line has to go in a different part of town, obviously you have to get the planning department involved. You have to have some platting services, you have to have drafting services, you have to get the city engineer involved. You also have to, of course, have the Public Works Department come in and rip up the street or the sidewalk. They have to come back and repair that damage when the work is done. We absolutely agree with the city manager's office is those services should be compensated too. Again, if you didn't have the city Public Works Department coming out and actually providing that labor and those services, the Utilities Department would either have to hire their own employees to do that work, or they would have to pay a private excavation company to come out and do that work, which we think would be very significant. So we are all in favor, of course, again, of the Utilities Department, again, paying those costs to the other city departments. The issue is in terms of how the fee is calculated under the proposed policy. We don't believe that it is good public policy for essentially one city department to tax another city department. By saying that a public utility, which is established and funded by the citizens of Lawrence, should have to pay a tax to a governmental entity that's funded and established by the city of Lawrence, we don't think that's good public policy. And the argument is in the proposed policy that a public utility is just like a private utility because they take advantage of the city's parks and recreation services, public safety, things of that nature. I would argue that the public utilities also provide a very valuable service to those same departments. It would be very difficult to convince the developer to come and locate a factory here or a facility if you couldn't provide him with water and sewer service. By the same token, you would not have a very effective fire department if they didn't have water service available for them. So I think all of these city departments work together. I think they're indistinguishable from each other. They all form the blanket of the community of services we provide here. And I think to have one department pay a tax to another department just doesn't make sense. It's not good public policy. Rather, what we would like to see going into the future is a system whereby each year the utilities department is assessed what the city manager's office and the budgeting staff believe is a reasonable amount to cover the cost of the services that will be directly provided to them by the city in the upcoming year. We think there's a lot of data on the books that could help you with that calculation. Roughly every year you're going to know, in a given year they're going to be able to budget how many water main failures are we going to have, how much standard repair work are we going to do. You have a long-term capital improvement plan you adopt and modify on a yearly basis. That's going to give you some insight into the type of projects you have coming up and the type of expenses that are going to be incurred. We think with a little more work, and a little more discussion, you guys can adopt a very good transfer policy that will set the stage for future growth and future transfers from the fund. So thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment, and thank you for bringing this back up on the agenda.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
When you say tax one department, tax another department, is that synonymous with franchise fee?
The legal cases that look at the franchise fee, it's essentially considered to be a tax. It's calculated as a set percentage of gross receipts.
I was just trying to figure out if that's
Yeah.
what you were.
And a payment in lieu of taxes is a payment, technically in lieu of taxes. Legally, they're both considered to be somewhat like a tax.
Can I ask some question? Luke, I appreciate your voluminous letter, I would say.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Apologize.
It was very, very interesting and reiterated a lot of the same points. I got it. I mean, I respect what you're saying, and I understand what your argument is. So really, this leaves two questions for me upon reading this and Bobby's points and the things we've been discussing for years now. The fact of the matter is there's an operating budget for the city and there's an operating budget for these services. The city at large has to pay for that, whether it be ratepayers or that would be real estate taxation. Would you prefer this burden be placed? We all know the costs are not decreasing. In fact, we realized an 80% increase in this amount of transfer in 2007, I believe. So would you rather us raise the mill levy in order to achieve these dollars?
I think that is more accountable.
Okay.
To answer the
So,
question.
so as a real estate board of realtors, you'd rather us raise the mill levy on on a already burdened group rather than assessing those fees on large corporations, rate user?
Absolutely.
So you would rather see that? And
We
what
not
would
only
be the
represent
value there?
homeowners, We also represent commercial real estate. We
Mhm.
also have a vested interest in the economic development opportunities in
Mhm.
the community. When you actually put that burden on the mill levy, where I consider it to belong, you
Mhm.
have a public hearing. It's transparent. You have to come back to the citizens and say, this year, we're going to have to raise the mill levy 1.5 mils. Standard $200,000 home, this is going to cost you this much more money. And at that point, the citizens of Lawrence can come in and they can have a discussion about that. Now, the issue with the water and sewer rates is, you tell me I have to pay this rate. They go up normally 2 to 3% a year. I have to pay them. It turns out to be somewhat of a significant amount of money per month. Obviously not as much as your real estate taxes, but there's no transparency there. I think I'm paying water and sewer rates to compensate the city for providing me with the product. And in return, I'm helping them make capital improvements to the system to keep the system strong and viable. I don't think that I'm paying water and sewer rates to fund other city departments. Now, we don't know if that's happening, and quite honestly, I don't think it is. I don't think the amount of the transfer you're currently making will probably go down. What we would like to see is a little bit better calculation of that in the policy. So I don't think the transfer is going to go down. I don't think this is going to make this transfer stop. What I do think it will is provide a little bit more accountability and transparency. And when I pay those water and sewer rates, I'm going to know exactly where they're going and what they're paying for.
Okay, so I think there's two perfect examples. You talked about budgeting. Yeah, that's possible, but then how do you budget for two of the large water main breaks that just occurred? The public safety officials have to come in and guard off that area. The excavators have to come in and do it on overtime. The actual equipment and materials and excavation repair that has to go on. The testing, I mean, those are all things that are multiple or interdisciplinary in nature.
Absolutely.
And those are the kind of things that a city team, achieve the goal, which is public service. And so I see your point of isolating these, but I also don't believe, and I'm glad you said it publicly, because I don't believe there's any necessarily improper transfers going on. They're just not clearly enough or transparent enough in your eyes.
We would agree. I'm not alleging that the city staff is doing anything improper. The great thing about this conversation is we're finally having a policy.
Yeah.
Do I think we've been transferring an excessive amount and paying for other city departments through this? I don't think so. I don't think our city staff would do that. I am glad we're finally having some accountability and transparency and that we're adopting a policy. Now, to your first point, I adopt a budget just like anyone else. Given it's a lot smaller than your budget, much, much smaller in our association, I budget every year for contractual services. I know in a given year, we're gonna get hit with some lawsuits that I'm gonna have to intervene in. We're going to get hit with a lot of services. I have a contractual services budget. If I exceed that budget throughout the rest of the year, I have to go back and ask for more money. That's what budgeting is all about. That happens to the city and county, I think, occasionally, when you have an unanticipated expense come up like that. You got to find more money. That's just how it works. But unfortunately, I do believe you have to have a starting point. You have to have a budget set. And if you exceed that budget, that's a discussion the governing body is going to have to make when that event or that eventuality arises.
Yeah, because I see there's going to be some general accounting and overhead costs associated with the accounting that you're proposing in your letter and in your speech today. Is basically every time somebody who doesn't work for utilities goes in and does something associated with the utility, those costs, the clock gets turned down, somebody has to be paid to account for all those services. Hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially for each department to pay somebody to do that service, because I know Casey can't achieve that goal.
Completely.
So, I mean, we're talking about adding overhead in order to somehow account or become more transparent, and perhaps that's what you're advocating. But for me, as somebody who likes to just get things done and keep costs low, there's an exchange there, and I guess I'm wondering where the value is.
The kicker is when you adopt a capital improvement plan every year, the value of the utilities assets go up every year. It does. As you're making improvements to the utility system, they're going to get more valuable each year. So under this policy, your transfer fee is going to go up every single year. On average, it's going to go up by the cost of inflation, unless you choose not to. What the policy will allow you to charge based on the pilot fee, based on the percentage of the franchise fee, technically that could go up every year because the utilities are going to get more and more valuable every year. Are the costs going to go up every year? Probably, but we don't know. I think it's worth it to spend a little bit more money to have a little bit better tracking and to account for where the costs are going.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The indulgence.
Any other public comments? See, the city manager might have a rebuttal to some of the points here, and so we'll call on him to.
Well, I appreciate the discussion. I think it is a good discussion. I think that we're being, Vice Mayor Dever is getting to one of the big issues that I've got a concern about is the superficiality of trying to talk about the accounting of it. I mean, I've got great staff in the utility department, got great staff throughout the entire organization. We're spending time on utility issues almost every day in our office, down the hall in the legal department, information systems, making sure the SCADA is working. Utility billing, and we spent some time today on the new utility billing. Well, it's a utility, so that's part of that. Didn't have anybody from the utility department in the room when we talked about it. I'm very concerned about having to try and account for all of that. So what we have done, and it's subject to criticism, certainly the lobbyists can make their points that they want to in regards to this, and that's entirely their right. But what we're following is a franchise fee model. We don't go in and tell Westar or Black Hills Energy, okay, to be on this lot, you need to pay this amount of money for that easement, and then if you go to the next lot, and you go to the next block, and you go to the next subdivision, we just charge a flat 5% gross receipts. It's because of that accounting issue about how are you going to account for all of that. I think that's analogous to what we're trying to do here. I have a disagreement with what Luke and Bobby are talking about this evening in regards to the fixing things that happen in the right-of-way. It's not only just that, it's the right to be in the right-of-way. We acquire that public right-of-way, usually through general funds. Sometimes the utility department buys easements, but in most cases, we're spending tax dollars or going through the process of being a city, and we're acquiring those easements and rights-of-way. Utility department uses it for their purposes. This is an acknowledgement that they should have an appropriate transfer. We've done transfers historically over time. I think when we got behind on infrastructure, we looked at that and said we need to step up in regards to that, particularly in relationship to the fact that these things are in the right-of-way and they're doing some damage to the right-of-way when it happens. It's not. I don't know exactly the total dollar amount. Sometimes it's relatively small. Sometimes it's major. If you recall, last year we put in a water line down Kentucky. This year we milled and overlaid Kentucky, primarily because it needed it, but also because it had on the east side of Kentucky a nice, healthy new strip where the old water line was, and we paid several $100,000 in order to get that milled and overlaid through the general fund and through our other taxing resources. I appreciate the discussion. I think it's appropriate to have a policy. It's appropriate to keep track of it. The one thing that we've done in recognition of where we are in regards to the policy, but also in recognition of where we are in regards to our water and wastewater master plan, is as we're calculating out those 5-year costs in our water and wastewater master plan, we're going to keep the level of transfers the same. We did not increase the level of transfers from any of the funds, particularly water and wastewater, for 13, so it stayed the same as it was in 12. My recommendation, and we only adopt budgets on an annual basis, my recommendation is to keep it that same way over the 5-year period. That's going to be foregoing additional increases that might be subject to for inflation or all those types of things, but I think it's appropriate, particularly appropriate given some of the needs that we're going to have in regards to water and wastewater. So I appreciate the discussion. We want to have a policy in place. We want to make it as transparent as possible. These numbers haven't been hidden. If anything, we think we've put a little bit more attention to it in the past few budgets than we have before. And we stand ready to take your direction in regards to this. Be happy to respond to questions and comments. The fright of having to account for every time we think about utilities or work on utilities, I don't know that that's what's being suggested, but essentially if you take it on to its logical conclusion, it would be a significant accounting and undertaking. We think that what we've got here is some semblance of justification for the fee. It's not a taxing it, it's a justification for that fee. It's a number that you can always come back and revisit, and your successors will come back and revisit it as well.
So let me make sure I have all this right. So over the last several years, we've had requests from Luke and Bobby in wanting to have the transfer policy put into place. And now we've got the transfer policy finally written and is before us. And what we're down to is a question about the calculation of what that transfer ought to be. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Is that what we're really down to in all of this?
Well, from these two,
well,
at least that's correct.
Yeah, okay. So that's really the whole part of this deal that we're to be considering. It seems to me, and we have made it several weeks ago while we were looking at the budget, a request came forward when we were going to adopt this transfer policy. We said we're going to get it on the agenda. The mayor put it on the agenda and worked with staff to get that to us. We're down to the question of whether or not that calculation is going to be there. There's strong recommendations from city staff, a lot of good public comment from both representatives and the organizations that they represent. I think that we're going to have to proceed on some kind of transfer policy at this point. If we're doing something wrong, then all we have to do is look at the calculation, the way the calculation is to be handled over time. That may be the responsibility of this commission. It may be responsibility of the commission 1 or 2 years from now. But is it a best guess at this point? I guess without carrying, a cash register with you that's going to be able to, knock out a receipt every time you turn around on work that's being done from one department to the next department. I just think it's going to bog down a bunch of things. And I think the recommendation, is pretty strong. So.
Yeah. I've lived that nightmare, working for a corporation and billing your time to all the offices and starting the clock and stopping the clock. And every time you think about something, it's a large amount of time for cost accounting, but it's something to try to achieve.
One point too is, when you're doing this sort of thing, exactly how much is legal billing, and it just you get into all kinds of different questions on how much time, and there's a million ways to make this, to spin it, no matter how we were to write it. The end result can be really whatever we want it to be, because we're the ones who are setting the fees and billing ourselves. So I've done this before. I've had I'm sure you have too. You've had contracts with different people, and they're just bill more hours instead of more money, or just whatever. It's just I think it's definitely more in the best interest of our taxpayers overall to come up with a reasonable policy that takes that has the least amount of of costs in implementing it. And I think it's good to have a check on ourselves. You know, I think maybe you know, having the auditor look at this every, you know, several years or something like that, and just, hey, are we in the ballpark here? Is this, can we justify this sort of number? Is that okay? You know, it would be more along the lines of the sort of check that I'd like to see, rather than a day-to-day sort of cost accounting for this, which I think would be an enormous waste of city resources and taxpayer dollars.
Do we know what the percent is? The way I understand like West Star or Black Hills is we get a check for 5% of what they bill, basically. Do we know what our percent is against what we bill?
I think our utility department revenues this year are going to be about 32 million, 31 million. That's all gross revenues. I mean, that's not only what we bill, that's system development charges that are paid, that's a few miscellaneous charges, and probably about $5 or $10 worth of interest. So, I mean, that's all of our revenues. It's my best guess of that. So,
and then we're at around 3 million in transfers.
10%.
I think it's in it. Casey, it's
3,084,000.
Is it in the memo, Casey? We'll look at it and see here just a second.
10.
If you look on.
When in doubt, look in
page 2,
Casey's memo.
There's a chart that shows for the water and wastewater fund, the solid waste and stormwater fund from 2009 actual to 2013 budget, the transfer from the enterprise to the general fund as a percent of the total revenues. So for water and wastewater in the 2013 budget, it was actually 9.5%.
And then solid waste is 1.5 and stormwater is 13.6. Well, I was just trying to get one composite number that.
Oh,
See,
I don't think I had it down here.
That's all right.
One of the challenges, for example, in stormwater is that we do a lot of work for the stormwater in the general fund as far as street and curb repair work that's part of the stormwater system. So that's, that's one of the challenges there, as well as why we've transferred that in order to try and better manage our work in that regard. That's why you have that percentage probably up so high.
Okay. Questions for staff? Commission discussion?
So I'll chime in. First, I appreciate staff looking into this further, you know, and I really appreciate and can understand the questions and maybe some frustration on Bobby and Luke's part there. I feel it myself to an extent, but I think now that we've kind of really dived into this a little bit, just listening to the presentation itself, you know, there's a lot of good reasons of how, you know, we justify, you know, the percentages that we charge and et cetera, and how that kind of compares. Others do it in different ways, but the bottom line, it doesn't sound like anybody's really got a perfect system out there. And one thing that I'm become comfortable with through this process is that, you know, the more, in fact, the busier we are here, the more I really do pick up on the fact that we run pretty lean and mean. I mean, we really are taxing our staff. There isn't going to be any new tracking or any new duties done by the city without more people. And so I appreciate that goal of getting that kind of transparency and that kind of accounting, but I also now recognize just how big a job that is. And I'm not ready to say we want to tackle that from an expense standpoint or even from a focus standpoint, because we've got so much going on that I think is super high priority. And while I understand this isn't perfect, maybe far from it, it is our model and it's just one model, but there are many others out there using the same model or similar things, and we may or may not find that the numbers end up different if we tracked on a project by project basis. But one thing I think would be certain is if we tracked on a project by project basis, is that the predictability of these costs would go out the window for developers. And I think just from a business-friendly standpoint, we've heard a lot about how we need predictability. I mean, it is an important thing, and I can understand that. At least you know what your costs are going to be. You can build those in. You can plan for those. And we have that kind of predictability. I think it would have some unintended consequences of that increased transparency. It would be could be some big bad years on fees at the wrong time. At least right now, we have the ability to kind of measure and look and say, we're going to hold off on fees increases, or we're going to level them for the next 5 years. Whereas if we're going project by project and just tracking it, we don't have much say in that, and you don't have any predictability. So we've looked into it. It's not perfect, but I'm comfortable that, that this is at least one model that's appropriate for us, at least for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. So I'm okay with the policy as it is now.
I agree with that. I think that to do what was proposed here, a change that was proposed by the Board of Realtors and Home Builders Association here, would end up raising our taxes. And I think that those are two things that are contrary to those two organizations' ultimate gain, or ultimate goals, rather. But there's no way of, we have a certain amount of work that's being done in the city. We're going to pay for it by transfers, by taxes. Looking at the amount of our transfers relative to what we're doing here, we're not off by that much. And we want to spend, we're really talking about over $100,000 probably in expenses and trying to calculate that out. So there's 0.1 mil right off the bat. We want to raise the mill levy in order to do that. I just think, just to move money from this pile over to that pile, it's just not going to be worth it, and I don't think it serves the citizens, nor does it serve, I think, the two bodies who came forward tonight. I appreciate the efforts. I understand the intent, but I think in order to get at those numbers, the unintended consequence of that is going to be higher taxes that I don't think that your groups would be approving of either. So I think that we have a pretty good system here. I think it's something that maybe we take a look at in the years to come, and we move forward from there.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of the policy, of having a policy, and I appreciate the feedback from the interests of both builders and realtors, developers, all those people that end up paying for a lot of these fees and services. What I learned from this process is that we will be leaders in our area and have a policy, unlike most municipalities. I think that's a good start. Be a leader in accountability and having a policy. That's something that would be great. The fact that none of them have policies or not none of them, but I don't think there's any clear trend for policies. I think the fact we would have one, I think that's important. I think that gets to the accountability and transparency issue, helps us shape budgets for the future, and I'm in favor of keeping it simple, as I said earlier. So I like having a policy, and I think we should have the auditor evaluate how our policy relates to the value proposition presented by the dollars collected. I think that'd be important in the future.
Nothing else.
Entertain a motion at this time to approve the draft policy on transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Dever, Emix, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody, for being here on this item.
We'll be here.
Cash handling.
Next item on the agenda.
It's a great order of things.
Receive the city auditor's report on cash handling performance audit.
The auditor carries no more than $50 in cash at any time.
That's right.
So leave him alone on his bike.
Exactly. Mike Iglinski, City Auditor. I'll do a quick presentation of this project. It's pretty straightforward. A couple things I wanted to say about it. One is I took a pretty high-level overview looking citywide. And the city handles a lot of cash in a lot of different ways. We have places that handle cash sort of minute by minute, places like utility billing and municipal court. And then we have places that handle cash on a very rare basis, maybe just an occasional check that comes in the mail, that kind of thing. So there's a very wide variety of cash handling operations in the city. And they are spread out kind of across the organization. I also want to make a point that in when I refer to cash, I mean not just the currency and coins, but also credit cards and checks. All of those things are valuable. They're things we need to make sure we get accounted for properly and that we protect from loss. A fair part of the work on this project was to get cash handling policies from as many of the different cash handling operations as I could, and then compare them to kind of a set of recommended or best practices, find out if there were gaps. There are some gaps, and we can, without much trouble, I think, strengthen our controls over cash. That'll be a fairly easy thing to do. There are sort of stronger or weaker policies, but Finance Department has a set of guidelines that they've developed that cover almost all situations, and I think the plan is to use those to sort of upgrade all the policies across the city. That will strengthen controls, and it won't cost much time or money. There were a couple areas in particular that seemed to be generally weak. That's not to say everywhere in the city was weak, but they were a little bit lacking, and those specifically were instructions and processes on addressing voided transactions, requirements for separate cash drawers or cash boxes, and addressing payments that arrive by mail. There was one, I guess I would say, kind of a small technical issue of our cash handling practices and what we've been doing don't exactly match the cash management part of our adopted investment policy. I think the intent is to tweak the investment policy to match what we're doing, just to kind of get those on the same page. I have a recommendation. I think I have 5 recommendations. The main things are to update those policies, to update the investment policy, and to provide some training for employees and managers. City managers agreed with all those recommendations, and I think the plan is to implement them pretty quickly, sort of within, I won't commit a time, but I think it was fairly quick. Yeah. And I had two things that I called in the report other issues. Those are things that are kind of out there. One is payment card industry compliance, and I think the training is going to try to address that. There's a set of requirements that you need to follow if you have credit card transactions, basically. And also the idea of, I didn't do any cash counts. I didn't try to match up cash at hand on any location with the receipts. But that's the kind of thing that might be something we want to consider doing in the future, either finance or myself, or some kind of combination of working with finance to do something like that. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Mike?
So why didn't you look at accountability on the simple basis of cash?
Why didn't I do some counts? I sort of planned to. I thought there would be pretty much uniformity across the city in the policies, and it would make it pretty easy. Because there wasn't uniformity, I thought it was better to try to encourage that uniformity first. That was a bigger kind of bang for the recommendation buck.
Fair enough.
Mike, can you clarify when you say separate cash drawers? You're saying we have multiple people working out of the same cash drawer?
There are times when it's not clear that, that it's not always clear that a cash drawer is assigned to a specific individual and that there's not sharing of that.
Okay. And I'm just curious, Dave, do we do cash counts, spot counts ever?
Not frequently. No, we don't. And I think that's one of the things that we want to include in our policy is it's either our finance department doing it, or, I don't direct Michael, but having something done through Michael to work on that, because that then ensures conformity with not only just the policy, but just checking to see, what's going on.
Sure.
And I believe that's in the draft draft guidelines from the finance department, and I talked with Ed Mullins actually and said, I'd be happy to share the workload and, send me and a finance person out. And that would be,
Love it.
Other comments?
That's great. Good to do.
Okay. What do we need to do with this? Just accept it?
Receiving.
Oh, okay. Any public comments on this particular item? Public's starting to diminish.
We can move
Sounds-
to accept.
It sounds like staff, Dave, and staff has already started to implement a number of the recommendations of the city auditor. You need a specific direction from us on...
Why don't we just move to accept it and direct staff to implement the policy, or implement the recommendations?
So moved.
Second.
Moved, Amix, second, Dever. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Okay, and next on the auditor's list here is recommendations from the city auditor to amend the current performance audit work plan to include one or both of the proposed performance audits on financial indicators and taste odor of water.
Yeah, so the code requires that I have a plan and that you guys approve it, and you've done that, and I'm working through the existing plan, but a couple things had come up, and the code allows for the plan to be amended. I was going to put out there the option of amending the plan by including 2 additional projects. One of those is that project I've done every year where I look at the audited financial statements and make some comparisons over time into a group of medians based on other cities. I've done that, I think, every year. The other would be to take a look at that whole issue related to the taste and odor of water. And that has come up in the past, but probably a month or so ago, the utilities director said, hey, would you consider considering that again? And I said I'd be happy to and bring it up. So what I would ask is if you guys would consider approving one or both of those projects, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide any information if I can. I think Dave.
Just want to draw your attention that, under consent agenda, you've authorized us to send out a request for proposals for engineering services related to that, and we would, if you approve this, which is my recommendation that you do so, that we'd coordinate that work so that Michael's work wouldn't be duplicative of what we've got a consulting engineer doing, and hopefully the consulting engineer would learn from Michael's work and vice versa. So make sure you...
I think for sure the taste odor work is very much needed. I've brought that up a couple times this year, and doesn't look like it's anything that's going to go away. We face it every year, and so to try and get ahead of that and find out what we need to do is very important. So I'd certainly support that. I'd support the other one, also the other comparison of financial indicators. I think that's a good operation to let us know how we're doing on things.
How about the calculations in the transfer policy? No, I'm just kidding.
Any other comments? Any public comments on this item?
Something to do.
Entertain a motion to direct the city auditor to perform both those tasks.
So moved.
Second.
Cromwell, Amix. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is to consider...
If I could interrupt, I'm not sure if Mr. Delaney was expecting to make additional public comment when I talked to him briefly. I don't know if you
Oh, okay.
public comment till
We could take,
until after these.
we could take public comment at this time since we're going to move into an executive session that way. Wouldn't have to wait for us.
Did you want to make additional comment, or do you want Mr. Delaney to...
You want to wait?
Contact me sometime. I'll do that. Okay.
Any other public comment at this time? Okay, thank you. Consider a motion to recess into executive session for approximately 45 minutes for the purpose of consultation with attorneys for the city deemed privileged under the attorney-client relationship. Justification for the executive session is to keep discussions with the attorneys for the city confidential at this time. Entertain a motion.
Second.
Moved, Amix, second, Dever. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0.
Oh, my gosh.
Everybody overlaps. You know what GPS does is every truck and every person, soon every person's gonna have a GPS on them. You know, so there you go. It is very big.
So many trucks. They've got GPS on every truck, and they have somebody looking, and they're looking, okay, people who.
I didn't have some concern about it.
Why did you back together?
But you might think.
Yeah,
it's
wow.
Because when you got.
They're not robots.
But when you got everything else, these trucks out
This is
there.
kind of a way to help
Yeah,
ensure
right.
people are doing extra operating expenses.
Right,
But I put
yeah.
that in, like, okay, it's like, we are better.
I talked to a driver and he said you really have to
Show up
justify
at that porch, tell them.
finding that because they wonder, why did you go there?
Why did you get 7-Eleven?
Yeah, yeah.
There's something that came back a few years ago about basically.
Well, you guys know, what just that? I've never heard about it in 20 years.
Really?
they just
I'm
park
sure they do.
knowing they're gonna get a ticket, and they just pay the tickets because
It's
they
worth it to
they
them.
save so much more time.
Don't
They just
fix
park
it, let me ask
in,
around.
risking a ticket, getting a ticket sometimes.
They did.
That's so interesting.
Then
And they
spend a
run.
bunch of time.
Those FedEx guys, I mean, they run.
Yeah, they
the
hustle.
floor.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell Bob, October 1st.
Yeah, it's
meeting,
gonna be fun.
And he can get in touch with you, find out times.
Yeah, I think that's the meeting we have the new chamber guys for. So, right involved with that.
CBB used to be sponsored.
Oh.
It runs there.
She just thinks, I think,
So
I
they're
think it was
not
an urban mess.
associated.
Maybe we should do a story.
Convention Visitors Bureau.
I thought I did, but it got cut. So,
A few years
but
ago.
yeah, I'll
split
probably
out
break it
to
up
their
again.
own entities. I think it may have had to do with the formation of Freedom's Frontier.
Yeah, I wonder, yeah.
I'd never heard of it.
Area, they call it. It would-
So, but they are still city funded, right, the convention?
Yeah, they get the bed tax is what
Okay.
funds the CBB.
I done tell Lauren stuff. It's funny. Man, I didn't see that
Yeah, I mean,
at all. They
it's-
were
I
like-
did, because it was a
Lauren,
big
hi.
part of the discussion at
Yeah,
the
it would-
HRC.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
When
I
it
remember
came
the
up,
city
they
tried
wanted to know, they were just
down
curious,
there with
will
Baker,
it
when I
be
was
DLI or
down
will it
there,
be
They
everyone?
brought it
Yeah.
up.
And they were,
It's about as far as
HRC,
it went,
it's not their
because
purview, but they were very much in favor of it being everyone.
Yeah, they were on that. Well, yeah. It's just like, whoa, what's going on up there? I should listen to this.
I'd love to.
Yeah,
Why not?
that's the
Jonathan,
first time I'd heard
great.
it, and, you know, she's been here for a long time, and, I mean, she's pretty knowledgeable about things, and she said, I'm sure, she said, maybe they stopped doing it, and I said, I don't know, like, I said, I've never heard it in 20 years, and I mean, I've never seen it, I mean, I said, I don't know where it's showing in a budget, I mean, I've never seen it in a budget line anywhere, so I said, I'm pretty sure that they haven't stopped doing it, things. There you go.
All right.
See you later. You weren't involved in an issue with the gun shooter guy, right? I mean, do you know where that's at? I've looked it up on Google Maps, and I can't really figure out where it's at.
I've not been involved in it, so Ian and Tony have touched on this. Actually, before that discussion was on Friday, I was out at big fish, so I was out most of that day, and yeah, generally we're good at this.
What is it, because I've typed it in Google Maps, depends on how I type it in, one is out by Tappas nature area, and the other one is on off of like Michigan. That would be. Yeah, that's kind of.
Yeah, it's not that far. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that, well, that's in my assumption. Just based on discussions. Yeah. Right. Are they? Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff to do. That office is an interesting place.
Maybe it's just a bigger.
Just bigger desk, more stuff.
Yeah, the desk, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We had 96 Yeah, the first grader, she's good right inside. Colby, he's like, he doesn't age where it's not, you're not supposed to like school. You're not supposed to be like, oh, I'm not right in school.
Yeah, yeah.
Christine, she's just trying to, some teachers, she does
Does
substitute.
she? Okay, good. Yeah, yeah,
She
hey.
was really busy, of course, like, one of my mom's working.
Right, right.
But last year she was pretty much busy,
Really?
Well, I thought from on Facebook that a teacher out in Greenman, and she posted last night because she goes over to her school, and I guess they didn't my son too because there's some teachers across.
There's some, you know, it's kind of like over in Kansas City with some of the,
Yeah, so that's what I would guess.
Free State, Southwest St. John's, and the daycare. It's not daycare, we're in home. It's nice, we're close enough out, I need to rent his bike or walk to Free State most of the time, but we can ride or he's on his license, so I told him if I was home by 9 tonight, we'd go out driving.
So much for that.
Yeah, yeah, I just texted him a little while ago saying, sorry, dude. But then Abby's at the bus, or the next thing is, and she is now in summer service, you know, they love her, and, he uses it a lot. That's not, he works, so,
It's good for them to figure out how to prioritize some things.
figure out, okay, if I really want to do this, how I can.
It'll be interesting for us because we live right behind middle school now, so that's where the bus stop is.
Oh,
So they can get bus to the other side of town. So that's what's right in the middle school. That's what it is to middle school. It's like, so, you know, you may never get on, you know, I mean, it's like, it's with it's like this, you can get there, but.
Yeah, yeah, what we're looking at is the only reason we really need fire for him is, Kevin, he's still working on his school process.
Yeah.
He's applied to Vince, he's applied, we keep telling him he's applied to them.
They're still hiring.
Are they still hiring?
Yeah, as of Friday, when I
I've
was
been
there.
in, I'm deciding to avoid the chaos for right now. I drove by today and thought it was.
I was gonna stop in on my way home from work yesterday. There
Crazy.
was like a line of
Yeah.
cars in the parking lot. I saw him here, I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but he smiled, brought far off, was out here earlier.
Oh, was he?
He should make some money, because he owns that apartment building that's right next to it. And, you know, they figured for a while, they were, you know, Dylan was gonna buy that apartment building for more parking, and then it fell apart. And I'm pretty sure that parking is something that they're talking about.
Sure, yeah, I drove by today, oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they're still parking all those cars in the grass lot. So, some point in time, we'll have to come out and come into the lot. We were there at 2 o'clock on Sunday.
Oh, did you? Crazy man.
Well, Christine's crazy about samples, she's crazy about, and I don't know, she had the kids down to the library, and I was going back to the farm, so I was kind of, well, you know, I'll meet you there, I need to find you kid. I just got lucky that somebody was pouring out right when I was in. But there were cars and there's so many.
Oh, I bet. We do, a lot of Dylan, on the way home from the church at Dylan's Business and Mass. And, Saturday, some comments, we were reading the paper on Saturday. Somebody had asked him, who lives there? I'm like, Tamar. Oh, and he just meant, he and I, since we're, that's now a new lunch spot, so.
Not so much food. So I was like, okay, I'm just doing that one. Yeah, just driving down there. It's like, so like, but it's not my car.
Yeah,
It's, you know,
yeah.
everybody walks around with that cash.
Hey, Jonathan, what's all this wiring for? They're gonna put in a bunch of new audio video. For meetings? For what? For the meetings. Yeah, broadcast meetings. So this will no longer be. I guess so, yeah. There'll be like wall mounted cameras in places. I think there'll be a screen up there on that wall. Another screen to replace that one, and then a screen on the wall back here, 80-inch screens. And they'll be like monitor screens rather than a projector. Okay, so these will be like still cameras on the commissioners all the time? Yeah, so that you can basically, you know, it's just, it'll be on like a person talking. Or Diane or somebody speaking, they can go over to this camera that faces there, or yeah, I guess they'll have, I don't know, they're gonna have one right there that'll face this way, and they'll have one there facing the public, and then you can, it'll be more dynamic broadcast, I think. What does that all be done? Well, they're working on parts of it already, obviously, and I think it's all supposed to be done within the next few months. he came in about a year and a half after. I was gonna say, yeah. He's got a lot. Well, you probably need to go for it.
Backward 380.
My guess is that when they go in reverse and they spin around and push it to drive, they keep driving.
I think that's exactly what it is. I think that's what it is. It's that last stage.
It's hard to control.
The 1990 Toyota
Right.
truck that
Parts
doesn't
of the
have
wall.
great heating security system anywhere. I'm not sure it's whatever.
Is it still automatic?
Yes. Always wear when he's driving. He's even in the drafted car. But, you constantly remind him, a lot of times when they're driving down the road, sometimes it's like, no, you have little sisters in the car. You know, I'm the whole is not very something else. No, fine, you're fine. No, you don't know. So, so Friday night, I was South areas. When I was sure, So he was asking,
What's rock?
what's rock? But, so I took him through and it was after that. I had told him. And we came across for a bicyclist or dark colors, on or anything like that.
Almost all of the car deer accidents I've worked with along 15th Street.
Okay, that's good to know.
Actually, between Iowa and Castle, on the Katy property, it's, middle west Kansas.
Yeah.
And they'll actually go north to that area. It's actually trees that, to the crest line.
Yeah, yeah.
They go back and look, is there, across there, or something there, well, further west, where Alamo.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you get further west, there's not very many, there's just traffic.
But,
They don't have.
yeah.
People call us. There's a deer 15th Iowa.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'll say.
You want to shoot?
Okay.
You want some handcuffs?
So,
Come on.
they're wild animals. So I'll do it, I'll say, okay, and then I'll let you call. Although occasionally we'll get some spooked up. Years. Yeah, say we'll do. Because they'll come down here.
Yeah. Actually, I think I had some of my records.
separate. That's what we have to do for study.
Well, and so your kids are where, are they?
Free State, West, here.
Okay.
They
So
say
your Free State's a sophomore, right?
he's a sophomore. Yeah, Grant's a senior. It's part of college.
Yeah, or retirement.
I told our youngest one, he's going.
You're in college, dudes.
So-
I'm gonna be vacationing in Europe while you're at college.
He goes to Rica.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck in the Army.
Yeah. Fun.
Don't pay for your college, you study. When you get study abroad. Yeah, we're in the same boat, same drive. He drives, my son is very good.
Is it?
He's been driving. No, I drive for him. He's a very good driver.
Yeah.
He's a very, he's very conscious. My daughter. And I told him, you're gonna crash. It's gonna happen. Don't freak out. Don't like this. It's unavoidable. I don't want you to crash. He, no, we actually, we went to the track. He crashed and crashed. In the past.
There was a small finger bender with no damage, so he's like,
It's his fault.
oh, yeah, it's perfect. Well, this is Adam logic. Nev was the driver before his fault because where she parked,
What happened?
parallel parking.
The car is not moving. Yeah, the other car.
Yeah.
You chose the truck.
No, but it was the driver before him, in the driver's ed car's fault because of the way she parked.
Oh, so he was pulling out?
Out. It wasn't the parking, it was the pulling out. But don't you understand? It's her fault because of the way she parked. And I still didn't quite understand how that steering wheel worked. What?
That's right. Even an illegally parked car, you get it.
It's your fault. It's a non-criminal.
You still saw it there. You weren't looking. So I'm assuming he didn't turn it up to the left to get out there? He put the front corner?
Yeah. Yeah, and it true. The second time I drove with it, parking lot there where
right, we're back in session after conducting an executive session. The only information I have to announce that from the executive session is that we will continue the first three agenda items tonight. The planning issues relative to the recreation center that will be continued until September 4th, as opposed. Sorry. Okay. I'd entertain a motion to defer those until September 4th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved Carter, second Cromwell. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, carries 5-0. Okay. We already did public comment. Future agenda items.
Commissioners, you've got some of the marketing material, the flame that'll be going into utility bill inserts in regards to the sanitation rates. We're going to have that ordinance on your consent agenda next week. We've also got an update on the OREA design guidelines, and then we've got a resolution on the TIF district to set the public hearing date for October the 2nd. Is that right? With us next week.
And staff, we were talking about putting the northeast sector plan.
I think we've got that
point
on September 11th.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is the date, and we don't have that listed yet. I'm sorry, sir, but I think we have started that process of notifying people that.
Okay. So that'll be on our
northeast sector plan will be on September 11th.
Very good, very good. Anything else for agenda? Okay,
I believe so.
all right, very good. Next item will be our commission items. Are there any commission items this evening? Okay, good. Calendar.
Again, attention on the employee appreciation picnic. It will not be the hottest day of the year. It seemed like it always has been in the past, but it looks like it's going to be a good day, maybe a chance of rain. I saw the forecast, but appreciate anybody's attendance. I know that we're busy with a lot of things here, but it's appreciated if you can come.
That starts, it's an evening, right?
It starts at 5. I think the first delivery of the pizza is at 5:15. So sometimes it's good to be there at 5.
This is going to be like, my apologies, my first employee picnic I'll miss, but I got to go to a wedding, a good friend of mine's wedding. You know, those kind of things happen.
I understand, and that's, no, appreciate that. But if you can come, that's great.
If the wedding gets over, I'll zoom over there.
But and we've also got other, you know, be sure and put the, let's see, I think we've got this, I know that's a ways away, October 26th, we've got the City Employee Service Awards Luncheon as well. So if you can get that and all these other things, of course, keeping us busy on things.
It's Broken Arrow Park, right?
Yes, sir. This Saturday, Broken Arrow Park.
Guys, do we have any idea how long this meeting on Friday would be? Organized recycling, collection, service planning? Does that have an end time, or is it going to just be?
This Friday, the 10 to 11:30?
Right.
I mean, this is just a continuation of the work that Tammy and Kathy Richardson and Chuck have been working on in regards to getting input from recycling opportunities and from recycling services.
I'm not going that.
Where's that employee service awards luncheon at?
It is at the fairgrounds, Building 21, on October the 26th.
Got it. Okay, anything else on calendar? And we've now reached our favorite point in the meeting, in which I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Dever Amix, all in favor say aye. Aye. History. Another one in the history books.